Honorable Minister Jakaya, Minister for Home Affairs, Chief Secretary Ambassador Umben Sefue, Permanent Secretaries present, Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, and representatives of international organizations, Madam Bella, illustrious World Bank Country Director, representatives of civil society organizations and private sector, the media, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Well, let me say how happy I am to be afforded the opportunity to grace the first ever Open Data Africa Conference in the history of our continent. The fact that it's the first ever conference signifies the dawn of a new era in Africa's transformation towards knowledge-based development. It gives me great pride that my country has been chosen to host this first conference. To us, it's a gesture of acknowledgement and appreciation for the strides we are making to embrace openness in governance through open data. I thank the organizers for the trust you have reposed on my country. In a special way, I thank the World Bank for partnering with us in the preparations of this conference. Let me welcome all of you who come from outside Tanzania, to Tanzania and to Dar es Salaam in particular. I thank Minister Jakaya for the introductory remarks. I commend you and your team for the excellent facilitation of this conference. Please continue to do the good work so that all delegations stay happy and the conference concludes successfully. I'm told delegates from governments, civil society, academia, business, from 30 African countries are present here. Also, our development partners are present. Such a good response reflects the growing interest in the open data agenda across the continent. It goes without saying that this conference will inspire more interest and make future conferences to be even more successful. Better participation, bigger participation, and more countries will definitely join in. Ladies and gentlemen, I commend the organizers for choosing a very opportune theme for this conference, developing Africa through open data. I totally subscribe to the idea that data is an important tool for development. No successful and meaningful development will take place without the use of data. Data assists us with diagnosis of the social and economic challenges of nations and societies and informs policy choices decisions by decision makers. Also, it helps with monitoring and evaluation of progress and impact. Much as data does not in itself change the world, it is true, however, that it makes change possible. The information and communications technology revolution has revolutionized the way we collect, use, and make sense of data. It has made data open. The impact of open data has been immense in all walks of life. There is hardly anyone today who does not benefit, directly or indirectly, from data being open. Open data has freed science, spurred innovation, and it makes collaboration across countries, continents, and institutions easy. As a result, it has made it easy for global challenges to be addressed. It has brought together researchers, policymakers, financiers, private sector, and civil society across the world to work together to find solutions towards challenges in a manner that has never been seen before. Africa has not been spared by this development. As a matter of fact, we have no choice but to join everybody else in this regard. We cannot honestly speak of developing Africa today without improving on ways we source, process, and make use of data. More importantly, we must transform ways we manage data by increasingly making public data open and shared. This way, decision makers will be able to make informed decisions, but we also, the public will be empowered to hold public officials accountable. Because if they know what is happening, if they know what has happened, then they'll be able to ask informed questions and demand correct answers. Overall, we will enhance good governance and take Africa to the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, one teething challenge you will find across African countries or governments today is lack of quality data, reliable data. This has made planning, policy making, and policy execution become a challenge. As a result, a number of policies and interventions have failed to produce intended results and intended impact. In some ways, it has been a source of waste or wastage of valuable resources or loss of opportunities to solve development challenges. It is evident, therefore, that there exists in Africa a disturbing relationship between underdevelopment and lack or underutilization of quality data. In many cases, this has been a function of lack of capacity on the part of governments to collect, process, and store data. In many of our countries, budgetary constraints, poor infrastructure, and lack of qualified personnel have been responsible for this sad state of affairs. At times also administrative and policy oversight or short-sightedness on the importance of data are to blame. In some ways, legal and institutional systems have played a part in restricting access and sharing of data within and among various institutions. There is need, therefore, for African governments to explore ways and means to promote open data in their countries. There is need to undertake requisite reforms in some aspects of governance systems to support open data. Open data survives or operates best or functions best where there is transparency, there is rule of law, and freedom of expression, to mention about a few. There is need also to strengthen national institutions responsible for data management, the national statistical bureaus, and others, so that stakeholders' demands for credible, reliable, and timely data can be met. If Dr. Albino's here is not well resourced, is not given the necessary needs, she's smiling quietly. And she wishes that the people from the Treasury listen. It gives me much comfort that this conference will discuss, among many issues, the role of the private sector in open data and the open data agenda. But it should also consider including the civil society in this discussion. For quite a long time, the issue of openness of information and data was seen as a matter for the government and the public institutions alone to do. The private sector and civil society organizations are not only consumers of data, but also important sources of data. It's about time that the demand for transparency on the side of private sector and civil society is also heard and honored. The demand for transparency in the private sector is not alien, neither is it new. But it's also not grounded on sound basis. We are already witnessing in this country, for example, in the extractive industries, under the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, this is happening. Companies report openly, government reports openly. What they have earned, how much taxes have they paid, and the government also reports how much taxes they have collected from the companies. And where there is discrepancy, then it is discussed. Why? He says he has paid you this much, and you say, I have received this much. Where is the difference? What has happened? So, this is already happening. It's working well. Increasing transparency and accountability on the part of both governments and investors. Now time has come to do the same with other sectors of the economy which we are working on. And of course, with other players whose work impacts on the lives of the general public. Some civil society organizations are having a lot of money for women, for children. At least those who benefit need to know how much money you received, how have you spent that money. But this is a no-go area, it's taboo. Don't ask. This is not right. You continue to demand on the government to say how much money they spend, they have allocated for water, how has that money been spent. But the very person who is demanding that gets a lot of money from the same donors, yet is silent about it. And if the government asks him, please be open, you are interfering, you are not friendly to NGOs, you are not friendly to civil society organizations, simply because we are saying, please be transparent. Well, I'm glad there is concurrence to that. And especially when I see Yakuza is also being part of the people applauding, then that's good. That information is vital for government, as well for the people who are supposed to benefit from the services that are being rendered by these institutions. African governments are also grappling with the dilemma between promoting open data on the one hand and maintaining data sovereignty on the other. The challenge has always been about where to strike the balance. It must be understood that open data does not and should not mean absolute freedom to produce and access all data. No government does that. Even the British government doesn't do it. Even the American government does not do it. Ask the US government to be open on what is going in the Pentagon. Oh. Say that, you'll be in trouble. You'll be accused of engaging in espionage. So, there are certain areas where don't demand of openness on the side of government. For good reasons. I subscribe to the view that data should not in any way jeopardize national security, rather than it should enhance security. If you ask us, be open about your plan to deal with the terror cells in Tanzania, I will not say, where are the cells? Who is who? I say, wait until when we take these people to court. Then that is when it will be open. But while we are working on it, there is no openness there. And if somebody thinks that by not being open in that regard, then we are contravening the basis of open data, we'll say thank you very much, but we'll continue to do the way we do it. Because at some point they're going to say, because there are certain things that government have got to do them quietly. Until such a time when there is need to make them open. It is my considered opinion that data relating to national security issues should not be made public for obvious reasons until such a time when government feels comfortable to make such information public. Approaches to open data must therefore answer the following important questions. To whom the data is open to? Which data should be made open? Why should data be made open? When should data be made open? And how should data be made open? Indeed, open data and data sovereignty can coexist and should coexist. It is up to us to strike that delicate balance to avoid unnecessary contradictions. It requires the demanding, the understanding, and cooperation of all stakeholders. Making open the data of how much money we have allocated for education, for which district, something we do. How much is for water? How much is for this? How much is for roads? How much is that? That's something that we always do. At times, I don't even know how much money our security organs have. They will all tell me, Mzee, you just wait and see how this country is kept safe and secure. Don't ask too many questions. Because even telling me may compromise. Because I may go and whisper to somebody, don't worry now, things are working. Wait, in the next few days, you will see. That itself compromises the institutions. So there is information which I don't even get until it has happened. Until when they feel comfortable, they will write to me a report. We've been following this matter. This is now the truth. We've arrested this one somewhere. We have interrogated them. We have asked them, where do you get the hand grenades? They say we're getting them across they're getting them across the border. From which country? Well, they will say from some countries. We have been trying to tell them, how do you get them? There is an agent somewhere who is bringing. So this is the kind of information which they will be working on it. They may not even make it open to me until when they feel comfortable to do that. So I'm saying we should not get to a point where saying everything in government, everything has got to be open. I think we will not be doing justice to governments, and we will find every government protective. So I think that's made clear. Tanzania embraces open data and sees in it an opportunity to consolidate and entrench democracy and good governance in the country. We have taken measures and initiatives to promote transparency and accountability through open data. For that reason, we voluntarily joined international initiatives geared towards promoting transparency and accountability. The Open Government Initiative, as Bella has just said, the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. There was a time I visited New York. I met a Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and we discussed a number of issues about openness, and he intimated me, there is this initiative. Look into it. I met George Soros. We had discussions on the matter. Then I got convinced that this is the right thing to do. I had discussions with the people in the World Bank. Then we discussed on modalities. In fact, I took that decision in New York. I said, fine, I'm going to join. Tanzania is going to join the EITI initiative. And then that's how we joined. We came back, we filled forms, application forms. We were accepted. We went through a transitional period. We completed that one quickly, and there we are. And it's working. As I've said, it is working. So that's why when people express apprehensions on a number of these areas, I say, we only have to perfect the system. We are part of the Africa peer review mechanism. And the Africa peer review mechanism is another system of openness. First, you do self-assessment. But there are areas. You assess yourself on this one and that one and that one and that one. And then, Africa constitutes a team to do an assessment of you. They assess what you said, establish the veracity of what you have said, because at times you blow your own trumpet. And after that, they come back to you. We sit down with you. Say, we have found that there's a problem here. This thing is not adequate. This thing is not adequate. This thing is not adequate. Please do the necessary corrections or adjustments. But that is just to brief you. It's just a debriefing of what they found. And then this report is presented to the African Union. And the African Union, before the heads of state, there is a day when the Tanzania's country report is being presented. The person who chaired the evaluation team presents that report, and the African leaders discuss. You'll defend yourself at times and say, brother, on this one, just concede, you're not doing well. Improve next time. Make an undertaking. So they just make their own decisions now on what they have seen or what impressions they have of the Tanzanian report. It's a form of openness. It's subscribing to openness, that people would come to your country. They choose the places they want to go. You are not deciding where they will go. All they want is your report. And then they said, okay, fine, we want to go to Sumbawanga. We want to go to the refugee camps. We want to go to it. We want to meet the civil society. We want to meet the opposition parties. We want to meet this one. We want to meet that one. You cannot say, don't meet them. It is not up to you. So it's a form of subscribing to openness. Of course, on the home front, we publish what we call citizens' budget, because Minister Sada's budget is such a huge thing, complicated. But then we make a summary of it. This is what we call the citizens' budget, to simplify so that people can understand. This is done every year. You have to do it so that people can know what is it that the government is committing to do in the coming financial year. Of course, the other is we have strengthened the National Audit Office. We have a new legislation giving greater latitude of operations. But the reports of the Controller and the annual reports of the Controller and Auditor General are made public. Prior to that, they are not being made public. I say, no. You must make these reports public. Let everybody know how their money has been spent by government. These reports are presented to Parliament. In the past, they used to be just one of those reports, but I say no. Have dedicated days to discuss the report of the Controller and Auditor General. And our parliamentary debates are public. These are live debates on television. They see what has been said. They see how parliamentarians have reacted. And at times, every time this report is presented, you have to do some public relations work after that. Because the public gets agitated when they see reports how bad the accounts are in some government departments, how the money has been misspent, misdirected. But we do that because we think it's healthy. It's healthy for governance. It's important that the public should know. But it also encourages government departments to do better. Because when these reports are confined, it is for the eyes of the government officials. Some don't even read them. What is the CAG saying this year? Don't worry. They always say the same things. It's the same every year. But the same things, don't worry. Okay, fine. But because of this, we had to work so hard. We were able to know what are the areas of difficulties, what needs to be strengthened. For example, of course, after becoming president, then I came to realize that in many of our district councils, they were not getting good reports because they were not having qualified accountants. And through devolution, these people have to decide on their own who to employ. I said, fine. It is devolution, all right. But what I'm saying is, I'm going to employ 780 qualified accountants with CPAs, and I'm going to allocate them to every district council. You must accept them. Devolution or no devolution, I cannot tolerate the continued bad reports from your accounts. Yes, sir. Now almost every district council, I think except for 2 or 3, the reports are good. We had to intervene. Then, of course, through that one, I discovered also there is one thing. There is clean certificate on keeping the books of accounts. That's one thing. But has that money been spent well? Is another. So I told the Controller General, the next thing you should do, value for money audit. That's why, because of that, now in our National Audit Office, traditionally you should have accountants. Now you have engineers as auditors, because they have got to go and do value for money audit. If they say a bridge has been constructed and so much money has been spent, does the money spent, if the value of money that has been spent and the work has been done, do they match? We have to do forensic audits. So it is because through these levels of transparency and making the reports open, then we've been able now to improve on the accounting systems. We demand of our public officials to be more open, to be more honest. So that is one of those important attributes of openness, which has been quite useful in Tanzania. Of course, we faced another challenge of government delivery. When they say things are fine, are things really fine? So how are things? Oh, pretty good. Things are working. Are things really working? So then I've been grappling with how do I get to a point of being confident that when my minister or my district executive director says things are fine in his or her concept, then things are really fine. And that's where we look for methodologies. Throughout there is the British example and then the Malaysian example. We learned from this experience. We came up with our own initiative we call the Big Results Now. It's about government delivery. It's about government delivery. The government has got to deliver. Of course, it's about choosing the priorities correctly. Not everything can be a priority. But then making sure that you canalize government budgeting to meet those areas of target that you have decided these are going to be the priorities. Proper systems of monitoring and evaluation. So in a way, this has also been an open system. Because how we arrived at priorities in cabinet, we made the democratic choices. We said because we are democracy, we decided to put to the vote. Said, okay, fine. Choose every minister on a secret. You're using instruments, of course. Choose the first sector that you think should be a priority. They vote. So choose the second sector, the third, the fourth, the fifth. First we agreed, we cannot do all the sectors. Let's disagree on 6 sectors. So choose the first one, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. I'm sure for the first sector, every minister, permanent secretary, because we had ministers, permanent secretaries, deputy permanent secretaries, deputy ministers, everybody chose his sector. But then we came to the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. We did the summation. That's why we came with the first 6 sectors: water, energy, transport, agriculture, education, and resource mobilization. Health became the 7th. But because we had decided on 6, we said we remain with 6. Of course, after we had consolidated the 6, now we felt confident to bring in the health sector. But also at some point, I was looking at the numbers of the doing business numbers. I was not quite happy. Every time there is a decline, every indicator, the World Bank, WEF, and this one, you decline 9 places, 4 places, and so on. I said, no, this can't go on. Also, we said, okay, let's subject doing business as the other priority area for us. That's why we have 7. So it has been an open. After that, then we had an open system. Stakeholders, whoever is interested, come to the discussion on water. We brought in the public, general public, government officials, civil society organizations, whoever else was interested. It's just an open discussion. They discussed the challenges. They agreed on what needs to be done, but they also agreed on the targets. Even the monitoring system is open. So that information on the BRN for every sector is available. Of course, there's the President Delivery Bureau, which is actually oversees, that's the monitoring, the follow-up. But this is an area where there is openness. So it's another area, important area of how government does its business which we have made public. Our experience has taught us that data must be backed and supported by facilitative legal regimes and guaranteed access and effective use of the open data. For that reason, we enacted the Statistics Act of 2015, which has empowered the National Bureau of Statistics as a sole autonomous body with powers to direct ministerial departments and agencies to adhere to the principles and standards of production of quality data. So Albina has a lot of powers. She now demands of government departments to deliver data to her. It's not voluntary now. The law demands that they should do it. And if somebody does not do it, well, Albina also has the powers for sanction. But to complement the open data, we have initiated a process. Also, on openness, we have initiated a process on enacting the Freedom of Information Act. We presented it to Parliament. I think the timing was a bit difficult. This is the time of Parliament going to elections. So people always have suspicions. What is the government up to? But we had made a commitment that we want people to have the freedom to have access to information and make a demand of the government to give them information. We said, fine, we'll deal with other. So we left that. That is an unfinished business. We leave it to the new government, to the new administration to look into. But the bill has already been presented to Parliament. The first reading has already been done. The subsequent processes will be done by the next government. Tanzania shall continue to support and live up to her commitment on open data, on openness, open government, open data. In January this year, we endorsed the guidelines for open data in Tanzania. The guidelines serve as a tool for ministries, as a guide for ministries, government departments, agencies to provide data to the Open Data Government portal. I think we have heard some of the public officials talking about it. We are also in the process of coming up with open data policy that will put in place procedures for identifying government open data, institutional framework for open data management, establish one window where the public can access data, and put in place procedures for uploading and upgrading data. This way we will enhance public access to government data in a manner that is easy and friendly, in a manner that allows use and reuse of data for socio-economic development of our country and its people. Ultimately, our intention to enact an Open Data Act legislation. These and many other steps we have taken speak volumes about our resolve to uphold open data, openness and open data. For us, open data is the way to go if we are to transform our country from an LDC to a middle income and ultimately to a developed country. We are looking at the future of open data in Tanzania with a lot of optimism. There is no reason or no intentions of backtracking. I don't see it happening. Well, there's going to come a new administration, but it's not easy to reverse from the stage where we are in now. Come there and say, total blackout. It's not possible. I don't see that government coming. At least not a government from our party, because that's our party policy. But even if it is the other guys, I'm not sure if that's going to be their option. That will be disastrous. That will be disastrous. You cannot put an iron curtain. You cannot erect an iron curtain and think that's the best way to govern a country. you'll get into a lot of problems. Well, there is no doubt that Africa needs to embrace open data in her development agenda. It is an idea whose time has come. It is the way to go about achieving Africa's Vision 2063, which brief says, to build an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. Indeed, the road towards achieving open data will not be easy. It will have its own difficulties and challenges. However, it is the best way forward to a better Africa. Africa where democracy, good governance, openness, accountability reigns is the Africa we all aspire. I believe the rewards of open data far outweigh its cost. Because what is its cost? It's just deciding this is going to be open, that's all. What is the cost there? No cost at all. But for being closed, I think there are more costs in taking that position than the decision to have an open government, accountable government, transparent government. I invest a lot of hope in this conference. I believe it will provide a useful platform for African governments, the private sector, and civil society to create an understanding about how best we can approach open data in the African context. I'm glad that this conference will be the beginning of an annual African Open Data conferences in the future. Tanzania pledges to support and participate in the coming future conferences, for they provide an avenue or a platform for sharing experiences and best practices. With these many words, I therefore wish you very successful deliberations, very pertinent outcomes. I now declare the first African Open Data Conference officially open. Good luck.